One night I was having trouble sleep. This isn't common on a full moon, and I was waiting for it to slip out of vision. I could see it outside my window, and I had watched it rise up out of the forest that surrounded my house. It was 12:30 at the time, so I decided to get out of bed and watch the moon from my window. The room was filled with the sound of deep breathing, that of my girlfriend Tammy, who was sleeping soundly. I envied her. The moon was large and slightly golden color. I rubbed my eyes inside. When I looked back out the window, I saw a faint light in the distance. At first, I thought it was the headlights, maybe one from the neighbors coming home. As I observed it more closely, it seemed to be stumbling and moving towards our property very, very slowly. I was becoming very uneasy and proceeded to watch it for another 5 minutes. As it grew nearer, I could make out the figure a little better. At that point, I wish I hadn't. It seemed to be an infant, a toddler, wearing a tattered dress that, from what I could see. There was something weird about its motion, though. It swayed violently from side to side, placing its legs in front of it as it did so. I decided to wake Tammy up because this was just too strange. "Hey," I whispered. "What's wrong, Chris?" Tammy said, completely in a haze of half-asleep confusion. She rubbed her eyes and inhaled deeply. "You have to see this." He took her hand and led her out to the window. It was gone. "Damn it," I said in frustration. "What's going on?" I stared out the window for a moment longer and saw it reappear from behind a tree. It was making its way left from the road. It had been walking down directly into our fenced property of about 4 acres altogether. It was still quite a distance from our house, though. What the hell is it? What do you think it wants?" The fear was evident from my girlfriend's voice. I don't know." The toddler stopped and turned his head towards our window. I quickly dropped to the ground and pulled Tammy down with me, hoping it didn't see us. I then waited a few moments before I looked to see what it was doing. It was now walking right in our direction. It was then I realized what it was, though the idea seemed impossible at all. "It's coming," I whispered freely. Fear tingled the syllables as they slipped out. "Why? What do you think it was going to do?" "I don't know, I really don't. I've never liked dolls." The room was then filled with the sound of my heartbeat. It was pounding against my chest, trapped by my ribcage. It echoed through my head, and I desperately wanted it to stop, because if that doll, that thing, could hear it, then it would find us for sure. Neither of us dared to move at that point. We listened for what seemed like hours, but eventually Tammy fell asleep in my arms while I stayed and listened for long after. The only sound that reached my ears were slow taps. Tapping, possibly on the window, but I couldn't bring myself to look up and find out for sure. I don't know how, but I managed to fall asleep. I know that because I woke up to the sun shining brightly in my eyes. The sky was filled with large, scattered clouds, one of which soon covered the sun, blocking its warm rays. It was early afternoon, but everything seemed sinister. Tammy was still lying next to me on the floor. I got up, carried her to the bed, and then tiptoed out the room and looked for anything that brought sense of clarity to what happened that previous night. I inspected the hall. Nothing. The bathroom. Nothing. Then the living room. I sighed with relief, but then I saw it. Bloodied handprints were splattered on the full-length windows. A series of tiny handprints, all made by a left hand. It was all real. It had happened. Maybe I needed to research the history of this place. I knew that an old lady owned it before I did. She had passed away a few years ago, and the house was put up for sale. I knew there was an old box of books of hers in the basement. I never went through them because I didn't think it was right. But then at that moment, I needed to know what the hell was going on. "Morning, are you okay?" Tammy's voice resonated from behind me. "I guess," I smiled, trying to reassure her that everything was going to be fine, although I didn't think it was very convincing. "Find anything?" I nodded and put my hand pointed to the handprints on the windows. "Whoa, this is really messed up. We have to find out what happened. I'm not waiting for it to come back. Let's go through these old lady's books. Maybe we'll find something." I was glad Tammy was drawn to the same conclusion I had, so we proceeded to the basement. It was an old box in a dusty corner, covered in a dirty old sheet. There were some decrypted books, possibly diaries or old photographs. Tammy picked up the book and discovered it was the latter. I started flipping through them. I picked up another strange book. It was not a diary. Instead, it contains incantations and things of the occult. It was definitely associated with a form of dark magic. My eyes widened as a puzzle piece clicked in my mind. "Holy shit. I think I found it," I mumbled, quietly yet excitedly, half trapped in a maze of thought. "Let me see. I think I found something too." As I handed her the book, I found she reached me a musty old photograph of a little girl with long braided hair. She had dark eyes and was probably around 8 or 9 years old. The oddest thing was the photo seemed to resemble the doll. The little doll was holding. It seemed to be an exact replica of the little girl. We were on a good start, but needed more information. I flipped through some pages of the strange book and found pages marked with a line of dark crimson blood traced down the right side of the page. Written on the page was an incantation to transfer your soul into an inanimate representation of yourself, so that it may grow old instead of you. This little girl didn't know what she was messing with. Where did she even find this?" I asked, astonished. "I don't know. Maybe someone gave it to her. She wouldn't have known it existed," Tammy suggested. There were 2 other little dark books in the box, one titled Mary and the other Annie. One name rang a bell. I knew Annie was the name of the lady who used to live here at the house. I started reading Mary's diary and Tammy read Annie's. "They're sisters," I said. We continued to flip through the tired yellow pages. "Yeah, Annie seemed to be very worried about Mary in this entry. She said she'd been acting peculiar," Tammy remarked. "What's the date on it?" I asked. 6th of June, 1958. I flicked to the page of Annie's book. "I'm so frustrated with Mama and Papa," I read. "They never listen to me. I'm old enough to know what's best for me. I am old enough. I don't need their permission to leave this house. If I want to go, I should just be allowed to go. This is not a prison." Clearly, Annie was dealing with some childhood angst. Nothing too strange there. I looked through a few pages before that. She mentioned something about the ritual and that it had been completed, and that Mary would remain beautiful forever. As I read on, I saw that it read, "But if her body loses its life, her soul will resurrect the inanimate representation 50 years after her death, so that it may return to her body." "Mary died a week later. Apparently she drowned," I said, flipping through the pages. "Oh," I said fearfully, letting it all sink in. Tammy reached for the diary and read the entries with her own eyes. "So the doll is Mary? And it was returning to the body?" Tammy theorized. "So, wait, she must have been buried here somewhere. Then what happened after she found the body?" I said, quickly skimming through the lines of the marked page. I found instructions to the ritual and read them aloud. "The resurrection charm is to be placed on the body's chest. Draw blood from the living person unwillingly let it spill into the paper or wood, engraved with the name, age, and death date of the body, and it then must be burnt, and the ashes sprinkled on the circle around the corpse. Drew a breath. Once this has happened, a nail must be driven into the heart of the representation to allow the soul to escape. The soul is then free to return to the body, but if it gets lost or does not wish to return to the body, then it is doomed to wander the earth forever. Is this the only way her soul can be connected to her body once more? Tammy inquired, clearly shaky from the news she learned. There is another way, I mentioned, but it's very risky. If you choose to resurrect the body before the soul is back inside it, this option recommended if you perform the soul exchange and your body has died, a living corpse will most likely destroy you. If it does, the body will destroy itself also. To do this, instead of driving a nail through the heart of the representation, you must offer a part of yourself and nail it to a tree to the resurrection charm or symbol carved on it. The body will rise and may either take the nail and drive it through the heart of the representation, destroy the representation, or run away and kill everything inside. I read all we needed to know. I stood up, went up the stairs and out of the darkness. Dark, damp basement. Tammy followed me behind. I wonder if it has the blood, I remarked. Christ, your arm! Tammy cried in complete shock. I expected both of my arms, but I couldn't see anything. Then I saw a small blood stain on my shirt. I lifted up my sleeve to find a rather small but deep cut near my shoulder. I wasn't there last night. She was here. She watched us sleeping. We have to kill it. I want it gone, Tammy exclaimed, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She was clearly close to panic, and I wasn't too far behind her. But the more freaked out I became, the more determined I became to kill this thing. To get out of here. I hurried into the living room then went to the front door. I found it to be unlocked and was how she waited now that it got in. It was not a human, and I didn't want to think of it as having any human qualities. It was a demon, a monster, a plastic doll, nothing more. I went outside and peered into the wood, taking in every detail. A chilling breeze rushed through the trees and brought with it the smell of burning. It's almost finished. We have to stop it. I ran to the forest against the wind, its cold biting at my face. I turned around to see where Tammy was. She was running behind me with a knife in hand. I brought this just in case, she said, out of breath from the run. Good. We waited for a while, crouched in the thick forest, listening. An unearthly shriek filled the air and was followed by the sounds of growling, like a deranged animal making mice meat from its prey. I grabbed Tammy's hand and we paced slowly towards the source of the noise. It got closer and the sound became more distinct. I stepped on a stick and it broke under my foot. I winced. Everything went silent. The noises hushed, and then we heard rustling behind us. A chill prickled up my spine. My head whipped around, but I couldn't see anything. There it was again, the rustling, going this time to the side of us. It was obviously moving very fast, whatever it was, and Tammy raised her knife, ready to fling if we had to. We moved closer to each other, seeking comfort while feeling completely surrounded. All of a sudden, she was ripped from my side. Tammy screamed and the knife flew from her hands. I turned to see if she a creature with long black hair and abnormally large eyes ripping into my love. She was extremely pale, gray skin and thin bony arms and legs. Around its lips were blue, feature of suffocation or drowning. It clawed at Tammy's stomach, and as she flailed and struggled against this unusual power, I quickly grabbed the knife's handle and drove it into the back of the creature. It had no effect. I winced and pulled all the might, and eventually lunged the creature off Tammy, who was now covered in blood, injured badly. The corpse of Mary let out a near-piercing shriek and clawed vigorously at my arms with her bony, decomposing fingers. I pulled out the knife and attempted to decapitate the creature, sawing into its cold, clammy neck. Its claws sunk deep into my flesh, causing blood to flow in streams of bright red down my arm. I finally regained enough strength to drive the knife into all the way into his neck and severed the head. Mary's head dropped to the ground with a thud. The body stopped struggling, went limp, twitching slightly in erratic motion. I relation watched it fall. I rushed over to Tammy, who was growing more and more pale as she seemed to be near unconscious. Blood was covering her torso and was still seeping from her deep wound. She had lost a lot of blood. "It's over, it's done. We did it. It's not coming back," I reassured her gently. She nodded weakly, and I inspected her injuries. There were deep scratches in her arms, face, and even worse on her stomach. She was lucky not to be disemboweled. Looked back over the body of Mary and saw that it was gone, vanished. Looked back at Tammy. She was gone too.